Come on. Why this thing doesn't working right now? Come on. Oh, yes, it's working. Guys, awesome. Seems to be working right now. So, or is it? Seems to be. So, let us start with our journey. I mean, it's more a continuation. Let's start. Oh, come on. We screwed up the intro somehow. Uh, Wait a second. Need to restart. I hope that you hear me correctly. Greetings, guys, and today
Say your business.
we are entering the lands of Tamriel. Is a strange orc besides us. We are orc too, because why not? We are orc wizard, in fact, if you forgotten it. So yeah, today we are here for one single purpose.
I've heard a lot about you, Outlander. Go ahead.
Wait a second, I need to configure my volume. I think that we need to reduce the volume of the everything. Something like that. And let's hope for the best. Wait a second. So yeah, I said that we are doing only one goal for today's journey, for today's part of the walkthrough. But what is it? If you watched my previous walkthrough, you know what it is. It's simple. We are currently standing in the room full of books. Here are the 4 books about the Empire. It's 4 volumes of the story. Here is 3 books. Here is 2 more. This one I placed last time. And maybe that's it for the books. Oh no, there's another one. So there's a ton of books here. Spells. There's a ton of spells too. But we'll worry about it later. Next time. Today we are not doing some gameplay stuff. We are doing just a story. all I want to do in a preparation is to look for the additional books from the barter with these characters that are standing around here. And I see no books. Let's go upstairs just to make sure. This is the guild steward. No.
I'm listening. Go ahead.
Maybe more books here? Oh, another book. But I think we read before. But no, there's no books here. Does we read this before? Yeah, we read it in previous stream. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do a simple task of reading all the books in this room. And let's start with some easy ones, I think. Khajiit never sells a book. That seems a little bit racist, but what do you know? Let's read it. The House of Troubles. Wait a second. I really don't want to talk when the sound of music is interrupting me or interfere with my voice. I think it's wrong. Let's be more clear. So, the first book is The House of Troubles. Among the ancient ancestral spirits who accompanied Saint Veloth and the Chimera into the promised land of Morrowind, the four Daedral lords, Malakath, Mehrunes Dagon, Molag Bal, and Sheogareth, are known as the four corners of the House of Troubles. Wait a second. To make sure that we never read it. Yeah, I think it's first time to read this book. These Daedra lords rebelled against the council and admonition of the tribunal, causing great strife and confusion among the clans and great houses. Malakas, Mehrunes Dagon, Molag Bal, and Sheogorath are holy in that they serve the role of obstacles during the testing. Through time, they have sometimes become associated with local enemies like the Nords, Akaviri, or mountain orcs. Malakath is the reanimated dung that was Trinimac. Malakath is weak but vengeful god. The Dark Elves say he is Malak, the God King of the Orcs. He tests the Dunmer for physical weakness. Molag Bal is, in Morrowind, the King of Rape. He tries to upset the bloodlines of houses and otherwise ruin the Dunmer Pool. A race of monsters said to live in Molag Amur are the result of his seduction of youths during the previous era. Sheogoraz is the king of madness. He always tests the Dunmer for mental weakness. In many legends, he is called upon by one Dunmer faction against another. In half of the stories, he does not betray those who called him, further confusing the issue of his place in the scheme of things. Can he help us? Is he not an obstacle? All those religious people, religious writers. He is often associated with the fear of other races have of the Dunmer, especially those who, like the Empire, might prove as useful allies. Mehrunes Dagon is the god of destruction. He associated with natural dangers like fire, earthquakes, and floods. To some, he represents the inhospitable land of Morrowind. He tests the Dunmer will to survive and preserve. Persevere? Persevere? Not preserve. Think. Yeah. The worship of these four malevolent spirits is against the law and practice of the temple. However, the Four Corners seldom fail to discover those greedy, reckless, or mad enough to serve them by ancient temple law and custom, and also by imperial law. The lives of witches and warlocks are forfeit, and imperial garrisons join ordinators and buoyant armigers of the temple in tracking down and destroying those full covens in the wilderness, refugees, and ancient ruins where they conceal their profane worships. That's a book about four deities and their worshippers. Okay, that's it. Just a list of paper there. And we are coming to this room. From which book we will start? That's a little question we have. We can start with Brief History of the Empire. But wait a second. Let's start with On Morrowind. On Morrowind, the Imperial Province by Eramanvi of Sunhold. After the conquest of Hammerfell, Imperial legions massed along the northeastern borders of Cyrodiil, and invasion fleets prepared in Skyrim. Initially, though the Imperial legions and navy were widely considered undefeatable, House Indoril and the temple hierarchy proposed to resist to the death. Redoran and Dres stood by Indoril, with Telvanni remaining neutral. Lalo proposed accommodation. Contrived border incidents in Black Marsh ended inconclusively, but the swampy terrain did not favor legion and navy coordination. Against the legions massed west of Silgrad Tower and Kragen Moor, and the legions west of Blacklight and Cormaris View, Morrowind had pitifully small militias, stiffened by small companies of veteran mercenaries and elite units of house nobles and temple ordinators and armigers. Further complicated matters was the refusal of Indoril, Dres, Hlalu, and Telvanni to garrison the western borders. Indoril and Dres proposed, rather than defend the western border, instead withdraw to the interior and fight a guerrilla war, with Hlalu advocating accommodation and Telvanni remaining neutral. Redran therefore faced the prospect of standing alone against the Empire. The situation changed radically when Vivids appeared in person in Vivid City to announce his negotiation of a treaty with Emperor Tiber Septim, reorganizing Morrowind as a province of the Empire, but guaranteeing all rights of faith and self-government. A shocked temple hierarchy, which apparently had not been consulted, greeted the announcement with awkward silence. Indoril swore they would resist to the death, with the loyal support of Dres, while Redron, grateful for a graceful excuse to avoid facing the legions unsupported, joined with Hlalu in welcoming the agreement. Telvanni, seeing which way the wind blew, joined with Hlalu and Redoran in supporting the treaty. Nothing is known of the circumstances of the personal meeting between Septim and Vivids. Septim is the king of Empire, and Vivids was a great person in Morrowind. Maybe it's the king of Morrowind, I don't know. He's some great person which has a lot of stories here. And the main city in Morrowind named by the Vivids, so I think he's pretty important here. So, nothing is known of the circumstances of the personal meeting between Septim and Vivids, or where it took place, or the preliminaries which must have preceded the treaty. The public reason was to protect the identities of the agents involved. In the West, speculation has centered around the role of Zurian Aretus in brokering the agreement. In the East, rumors suggest that Vivids offered Numidium to aid in the conquest of the Altmer and Somerset Isle, in return for significant concessions to preserve self-rule, house traditions, and religious practices in Morrowind. The Lord High Counselor of the Grand Council and Indoril refused to accept the treaty and refused to step down. He was assassinated and replaced by Hlalu. House Hlalu took the opportunity to settle some old scores with House Indoril, and a number of local consuls changed hands in bloody coups. More blood was shed in these inter-house struggles than against the Emperor legions during the Morrowind transition from an independent nation to a province of the Empire. The generals of the legions had dreaded an invasion of Morrowind. The Dunmer were widely regarded as the most dreadful and fanatic foes, further inspired by their temple and clan traditions. The generals had not grasped the political weaknesses of Morrowind, which Emperor Tiber Septim recognized and exploited. At the same time, given the tragic depopulation and destruction experienced by the other provinces conquered by Septim, and the swift and efficient assimilation of Morrowind into the imperial legal systems and economy, with relatively small impact on lower or upper classes of Morrowind's citizens, the tribunal also deserves some credit for recognizing the hopelessness of Morrowind's defense and the chance of gaining important concessions at the treaty table by being the first to offer peace. By contrast, many Dural nobles choose to commit suicide rather than submit to the empire, with the result that the house was significantly weakened during the period of transition, guaranteeing that they would lose much of their influence and power to House Hlalu, whose influence and power was waxing with its enthusiastic accommodation with the empire. The temple hierarchy more skillfully managed their loss of faith, remaining aloof from political struggles and earning the goodwill of the people by concentrating on their economic, educational, and spiritual welfare. So we've read the short story with our dirty hands. uh, to be short, it's about the famous assimilation of this land of Morrowind into the hands of Empire, which is always moving across the Tamriel to conquer new lands and unexplored lands. It was the land of Dunmers. Then there comes new races, Khajiits, north, etc. And after that, there entered the empire. And before empire, there was few houses that ruled this Morrowind province, this Morrowind land. There was in-house struggle, in-house fighting between several houses that weakened the whole Morrowind forces. Morrowind political situation was intense. So it was a hard times to defend the Morrowind from the well-equipped army of Empire. So that's the story. And the Lord of the Morrowind, the Vivids, is Vivid City, decided by some reasons, and the decision was right, to join the Empire as their province. So Morrowind is now just a province of Empire, which occurred relatively soon enough. It was, I think, not long time ago, so it's like in lifetime of these people. They were conquered by Empire. It is different from another later parts of the game, Oblivion or Skyrim, where Empire, as I know, is ruling for a long time. So all we can see is that Empire is not just the good, law-abiding people. They are conquerors that enslaved at some point, that taken the rule from the hands of these people. Okay, let's move on. What we have here? Mage skill charter. We'll read it later. We will read books in a topical fashion. We'll see something about history, maybe. Yeah, there's nothing like that. But we have 4 tomes, 4 volumes here that I think is historical. Brief history of the Empire. Let's read them, and then we'll finish with these 3 books there, or 4, how many there are. A Brief History of the Empire, Part 1, by Stronach Thorge the Third, Imperial Historian. Which race he is? He's definitely not the Imperial. Maybe he's Nord, because it's a strange name. Maybe he's Orc, because Thorge. I believe he's like Nord or something like that. Definitely not Imperial. And I think he's not the Dunmer, the Dark Elf. Anyway, let's read the story. Before the rule of Tiber Septim, all Tamriel was in chaos. The poet Tratzizis called that period of continuous unrest days and nights of blood and venom. The kings were a petty lot of grasping tyrants who fought Tiber's attempts to bring order to the land, but they were as disorganized as they were dissolute, and the strong hand of Septim brought peace forcibly to Tamriel. The year was Second Era 896. The following year, the Emperor declared the beginning of the new era. Thus began the Third Era, a year out. For 38 years, the Emperor Tiber reigned supreme. It was a lawful, pious, and glorious age, when justice was known to one and all. from serf to sovereign. On Tiber's death, it reigned for an entire fortnight, as if the land of Tamriel itself was weeping. The emperor's grandson, Pelagius, came to the throne. Though his reign was short, he was a strong and resolute, and his father had been, as his father had been. And Tamriel could have enjoyed a continuation of the Golden Age. Alas, an unknown enemy of the Septim family hired that accursed organization of cutthroats, the Dark Brotherhood, to kill the Emperor Pelagius. I Pelagius I, as he knelt at prayer at the Temple of the One in the Imperial City. Pelagius the First's reign lasted less than 3 years, sadly. Pelagius had no living children, so the crown emperor passed to his first cousin, the daughter of Tiber's brother Agnorith, Quintira, former queen of Silvenar, assumed the throne as Quintira I. Her reign was blessed with prosperity and good harvests, and she herself was an avid patroness of art, music, and dance. Kira's, Quintira's son was crowned after her death, the first emperor of Tamriel to use the imperial name Uriel. Uriel I was a great lawmaker of the Septim dynasty and a promoter of independent organizations and guilds. Under his kind but firm hand, the Fighters Guild and Mages Guild increased in prominence throughout Tamriel. His son and successor, Uriel II, reigned for 18 years, from the death of Uriel I in Third Era 64 years year to Pelagius II's accession in Third Era 82 years. Tragically, the rule of Uriel II was cursed with blights, plagues, and insurrections. The tenderness he inherited from his father did not serve Tamriel well, and little justice was done. Pelagius II inherited not only the throne from his father, but the debt from the latter's poor financial and judicial management. Pelagius dismissed all of the elder consul and allowed only those willing to pay great sums to resume their seats. He encouraged similar acts among his vassals, the kings of Tamriel, and by the end of his 17-year reign, Tamriel had returned to prosperity. His critics, however, have suggested that any advisor possessed of wisdom but not of gold had been summarily ousted by Pelagius. This may have led to some of the troubles his son Antiochus faced when he in turn became emperor. Antiochus was certainly one of the more flamboyant members of the usually austere Septim family. He had numerous mistresses and nearly as many wives, and was renowned for the grandeur of his dress and his high good humor. Unfortunately, his reign was rife with civil war, surpassing even of his grandfather Uriel II. The War of the Isle in Third Era 110, 12 years after Antiochus assumed the throne, nearly took the province of Somerset Isle away from Tamriel. The united alliance of the kings of Somerset and Antiochus only managed to defeat King Orkhum of the island kingdom of Yondonia due to a freak storm. Legend credits the psychic order of the Isle of Artemium with the sorcery behind the tempest. The story of Kintira II, heiress to her father Antiochus' throne, is certainly one of the saddest imperial tales. I mean, saddest tales in imperial history. Her first cousin, Oriol, son of Queen Portema of Solitude, accused Kintira of being a bastard, alluding to the infamous decadence of the imperial city during her father's reign. Uh, when this accusation failed to stop her coronation, Uriel bought the support of several disgruntled kings of High Rock, Skyrim, and Morrowind, and with Queen Potema's assistance, he coordinated three attacks on the Septim Empire. The first attack occurred in the Iliac Bay region, which separates High Rock and Hammerfell. Kintira's entourage was massacred, and the empress taken captive. For 2 years, Kintira II languished in an imperial prison, believed to be somewhere in Glenpoint or Glenmoriel before she was slain in her cells under mysterious circumstances. The second attack was on a series of imperial garrisons along the coastal Morrowind Islands. The Empress consort Contin Arings fell defended the forts. The forts fell defending the forts. The third and final attack was a siege of the imperial city itself, occurring after the elder consul had split up the army to attack western High Rock and eastern Morrowind. The weakened government had little defense against Uriel's determined aggression and capitulated after only a fortnight of resistance. Uriel took the throne that same evening and proclaimed himself Uriel III, Emperor of Tamriel. The year was Third Era 121. Thus began the War of the Red Diamond, described in the volume 2 of this series. Let's watch. I want to know. Oh, sorry for that. Uh, damn. I want to know which year is currently. Maybe know it at the first page. No, we haven't. Be here or here as a topic? No, we can't find. I don't know what the current age is. Only know the date. Let's read the second part. The part 2. Volume 1 of this series described in a brief the lives of the first 8 emperors of the Septim dynasty, beginning with the glorious Tiber Septim and ending with his great-great-great-great-grandniece Kintira II. Kintira's murder in Glenpoint while in captivity is considered by some to be the end of the pure strain of Septim blood in the Empire family. Certainly, it marks the end of something significant. Uriel III not only proclaimed himself Emperor of Tamriel, but also Uriel Septim III, taking the eminent surname as a title. In the truth, his surname was Mantiarco from his father's line. In time, Uriel III was deposed and his crimes reviled, but the tradition of taking the name Septim as a title for the emperor of Tamriel did not die with him. For 6 years, the War of the Red Diamond, which takes its name from the Septim family famous badge, tore the empire apart. The combatants were the three surviving children of Pelagius II, Potema, Zephyrus, and Magnus, and their various offsprings. Potema, of course, supported her son, Uriel III, and had the combined support of all Skyrim and Northern Morrowind. I think we know the story or not. It is soon, yeah, about the Wolf Queen. But we'll see how the story goes. We read something before in detail about the Wolf Queen. I think that is, or Queen of Solitude. Anyway, let's move on. Magnus, however, the province High Rock turned court. The provinces of Hammerfell, Somerset Isle, Valenwood, Elsewhere, and Blackmarsh were divided in their loyalty, but most kings supported Zephyrus and Magnus. In Third Era 127, Uriel III was captured at the Battle of Inchidak in the Hammerfell, en route to his trial in the Emerald City. A mob overtook his prisoner's carriage and burned him alive within it. That bastards. His captor and uncle continued to the Emerald City, Imperial City, I mean, and by common acclaim was proclaimed Zephyrus I, Emperor of Tamriel. Zephyrus' reign was marked by nothing but war. By all accounts, he was a king. He was a kind and intelligent man. But what Tamriel needed was a great warrior, and he, fortunately, was that. Yeah? Strange. It took an additional 10 years of constant warfare for him to defeat his sister Potema, the so-called Wolf Queen of Solitude, who died in the siege of her city-state in the year 137. Zephyrus survived his sister by only 3 years. He never had time during the war's years to marry, so it was his brother, the fourth child of Pelagius II, who assumed the throne. Maybe it was this Wolf Queen of Solitude. Wait a second. I'm sorry. We just need to look at our books. They're always so mysterious with their names. Come on, I think we throw them away. Maybe it's the reason, so let's ignore it. Let's read. Let's continue our reading. So where we left off. Sorry for that. Oh, come on. Yeah, who assumed the throne. The Emperor Magnus was already elderly when he took up the imperial diadem, and the business of punishing the traitorous kings of the War of the Red Diamonds drained much of his remaining strength. Legend accuses Magnus' son and her Pelagius III of patricide, but that seems highly unlikely, for no other reason than that Pelagius was king of Solitude following the death of Potema and seldom visited the Emerald City. Pelagius III, sometimes called Pelagius the Mad, yeah, it's near to be true that the story is intertwined with this wolf queen of Solitude. Pelagius III, sometimes called Pelagius the Mad, was proclaimed emperor in the 145 year of the Third Era. Almost from the start, his eccentricities of behavior were noted at court. He embarrassed dignitaries, offended his vassal kings, and on one occasion marked the end of an empire grand ball by attempting to hang himself. His long-suffering wife was finally awarded the regency of Tamriel, and Pelagius III was sent to the series of healing institutions and asylums until his death in Third Era 153 year, at the age of 34. The Empress Regent of Tamriel was proclaimed Empress Kateriah the first upon the death of her husband. Some who do not mark the end of the Septim bloodline with the death of Kintira II consider the ascendancy of this dark elf woman the true mark of its decline. Her defenders, on the other hand, assert that though Kateriah was not descended from Tiber, the son she had with Pelagius was, so imperial chain did continue. Despite racist assertions to the contrary, Kateriah's 46-year reign was one of the most celebrated in Tamriel's history. Uncomfortably, uncomfortable, come on, uncomfortable in the imperial city, Kateriah traveled extensively throughout the empire, such as no emperor ever had since Tiber's day. She repaired much of the damage that previous emperors, broken alliance, and bungled diplomacy created. The people of Tamriel came to love their empress far more than the nobility did. Kateriah's death in a minor skirmish in Black Marsh is a favorite subject of conspiracy-minded historians. The sage Montalius' discovery, for instance, of a disenfranchised branch of the Septim family and their involvement with the skirmish was a revelation indeed. When Cassiander assumed the throne upon the death of his mother, he was already middle-aged. Only half-elven, he aged like a Breton. In fact, he had left the rule of Wayrest to his half-brother Uriel due to poor health. Nevertheless, as the only true blood relation of Pelagius and thus Tiber, he was pressed into accepting the throne. To no one's surprise, the Emperor's descendants' reign did not last long. In 2 years he joined his predecessors in eternal slumber. Uriel Lariat, Cassiander's half-brother, and the child of Kateriah I, and her imperial consort, Gulliver Lariat, after the death of Pelagius III, led the kingdom of Wayrest to reign as Uriel IV. Allegedly, Uriel IV was a septim. Cassiander had adopted him into the royal family when he had become king of Wayrest. Nevertheless, to the consul and the people of Tamriel, he was bastard child of Kateriah. Uriel did not possess the dynamism of his mother, and his long 43 reign was a hotbed of sedition. Uriel IV's story is told in the third volume of this series. Let's read the third volume then. The first volume of the series told in a brief the story of the succession of the first 8 emperors of the Septim dynasty from Tiber I to Kintira II. The second volume describes the War of the Red Diamond and the 6 emperors that followed its aftermath, from Uriel III to Tasinder I. At the end of that volume, it was described how Emperor Tassinder's half-brother, Uriel IV, assumed the throne of the Empire of Tamriel. It will be recalled that Uriel IV was not a Septim by birth. His mother, though she resigned as empress for many years, was a dark elf married to a true Septim emperor, Pelagius III. Uriel's father was actually Cateriac first consort after Pelagius' death, a Breton nobleman named Gulliver Lariat. Before taking the throne of empire, Zassander I had ruled the kingdom of Wayrest, but poor health had forced him to retire. Zassander had no children, so he legally adopted his half-brother Uriel and abdicated the kingdom. 7 years later, Zassander inherited the empire at the death of his mother. 3 years after that, Uriel once again found himself in the recipient of Zassander's inheritance. Uriel's first reign was a long and difficult one. Despite being allegedly adopted member of the Septim family, and despite the Lariat family's high position, indeed, they were distant cousins of the Septims, few of the elder consul could be persuaded to accept him fully as a blood descendant of Tiber. The consul had assumed much responsibility during Caturiach's first long reign, and Cassander the first short one, and a strong-willed alien monarch like Uriel IV found it possible to command their unswerving fealty. Time and again, the consul and emperor were at odds, and time and again the consul won the battles. Since the days of Pelagius II, the elder consul had consisted of the wealthiest men and women in the empire, and the power they wielded was conclusive. The consul's last victory over Uriel IV was posthumous. Andorak, Uriel's fourth son, was disinherited by vote of consul, and a cousin more closely related to the original Septim line was proclaimed Zephorios II in the Third Era 268. For the first 9 years of Zephorios II reign, those loyal to Andorak battled the imperial forces, in an act that the sage and Eraintine called Taber Septim's heart beating no more. The consul granted Andorak the High Rock Kingdom of Shornhelm to end the war, and Andorak's descendants still rule there. By and large, Zephorios II had voice that demanded more of his attention than Andorak, from out of a Cimmerian nightmare. In the words of Eraintine, a man who called himself the Camoran usurper led an army of Diadra and undead warriors on a rampage through Wallenwood, conquering kingdom after kingdom. Few could resist his onslaughts, and as months turned to bloody months in the year Third Era 249, even fewer tried. Zephorios II sent more and more mercenaries into Hammerfell to stop the usurper's northward march, but they were bribed or slaughtered and raised as dead. The story of the Cameron usurper deserves a book of its own. It is recommended that the reader find Felaux's Ilthre, The Fall of the Usurper, for more detail. We will try to remember this name of the book, but no guarantees here. Sorry, guys. In short, however, the destruction of the forces of the usurper had little to do with the efforts of the emperor. The result was a great regional victory and an increase in hostility towards the seemingly inefficacious um, empire. Uriel V's Cephorius II's son and successor swiveled opinion back toward the latent power of the empire, turning the attention, come on, read the freaking word, Uh, turning the attention to Tamriel away from internal strife. Uriel V embarked on a series of invasions, beginning almost from the moment he took the throne in 3rd Era 268. Uriel V conquered Roscrea in 271, Cathnoquia in 276, Yenislia in 279, and Esronict in 284. In 3rd Era 288, he embarked on his most ambitious enterprise, the invasion of the continent kingdom of Akavir. This ultimately proved a failure, for 2 years later Uriel V was killed in Akavir on the battlefield of Ionis. Nevertheless, Uriel V holds a reputation second only to Tiber as one of the 2 great warrior emperors of Tamriel. The last 4 emperors, beginning with Uriel's fifth infant son and described in the 4th and final volume of this series. Are you ready for the last volume here? Wait a second. I need a little bit of water. So let's go. The last part. I could ignore the introduction, like here. On Uriel's 5th death, across the sea, in distant, hostile Akavir, Uriel VI was but 5 years old. In fact, Uriel VI was born only shortly before his father left for Akavir. Uriel V's only other progeny by a more genetic alliance were the twins Morihantha and Elosia, who had been born a month after Uriel V left. Uriel VI was crowned in the 290th year of the 3rd Era. The imperial consort Thonica, as the boy's mother, was given a restricted regency until Uriel VI reached his majority. The elder consul retained the real power, as they had ever since the days of Kateria I. Council so enjoyed its unlimited and unrestricted freedom to promulgate laws and generate profits that Uriel VI was not given full license to rule until the 307, when he was already 22 years old. He had been slowly assuming positions of responsibility for years, but both the consul and his mother, who enjoyed even her limited regency, were loath to hand over the reins. By the time he came to the throne, the mechanisms of government gave him little power except for that of the imperial veto. This power, however, he regularly and vigorously exercised. Come on. By 313, Uriel VI could boast with conviction that he truly did rule Tamriel. He utilized defunct spy networks and guard units to bully and coerce the difficult members of the Elder Council. His half-sister, Morihantha, was, not surprisingly, his staunchest ally, especially after her marriage to Baron Ufigerson of Winterhold brought her considerable wealth and influence. As a sage, Ugarich said, Uriel V conquered Esronic, but Uriel VI conquered the Elder Council. When Uriel VI fell off a horse and could not be resuscitated by the finest imperial healers, his beloved sister Morihantha took up the imperial tiara. At 25 years of age, she has been described by admittedly self-serving diplomats as the most beautiful creature in all Tamriel. She was certainly well-learned, vivacious, athletic, and a well-practiced politician. She brought the Archmagister of Skyrim to the Imperial City and created the second Imperial Battle Mage since the days of Tiber Scepter. Marihantha, Marihatha finished the job her brother had begun and made the Imperial Province true government under the Empress and later the Emperor. Outside the province, however, the Empire had been slowly disintegrating. Open revolutions and civil wars had raged unchallenged since the days of her grandfather Zephorius II. Carefully coordinating her counterattacks, Morihantha slowly claimed back her rebellious vassals, always avoiding overextending herself. Though Marihatha's military campaigns were remarkably successful, her deliberate pace often frustrated the consul. One consulman, an Argonian who took the Colovian name of Thoricles Romus, furious at her refusal to send troops to his troubled Black Marsh, is commonly believed to have hired the assassins who claimed her life in Third Era 339. Romus was summarily tried and executed, though he protested his innocence to the last. Morihantha had no surviving children, and Eloisia had died of fever 4 years before. Eloisia's 25-year-old son, Pelagius, was thus crowned Pelagius IV. Pelagius I continued his aunt's work, slowly bringing back under his wing the radical and refractory kingdoms, duchies, and baronies of the empire. He exercised Morihantha poise and circumspect pace in his endeavors, but alas, he did not attain her success. The kingdoms had been free of constraint for so long that even a benign imperial presence was considered odious. Nevertheless, when Pelagius died after an astonishing 49-year reign, um, Tamriel was closer to unity than it had been since the days of Uriel I. Our current emperor, his awesome and terrible majesty, Uriel Septim the Seventh, son of Pelagius IV, has the diligence of his great aunt Morihantha and the political skills of his great uncle Uriel VI and the military prowess of his great grand uncle Uriel V. For 21 years he reigned and brought justice and order to Tamriel in the year Third Era 329. However, his imperial battle mage, Jagar Tharn betrayed him. Uriel Seventh was imprisoned in a dimension of Tharn's creation, and Tharn used his sorcery of illusion to assume uh, the Emperor's aspect. For the next 10 years, Tharn abused imperial privilege, but did not continue Uriel's seventh salute of reconquest. It is not yet entirely known what Tharn's goals and personal accomplishments were during the 10 years he masqueraded as his liege lord. In Sword Era 399 year, an enigmatic champion defeated the Battle Mage in the dungeons of the Imperial Palace and freed Uriel VII from his other dimensional jail. Since his emancipation, Uriel VII has worked diligently to renew the battles that would reunite Tamriel. Sun's interference broke the momentum, it is true, but the years since then have proven that there is hope for the golden age of Tiberius Septim, a rule glorifying Tamriel once again. That's the story of the empire, all its rulers, read it all. So I need to backtrack a little bit. I want to understand. So when Morrowind was conquered exactly? Is there the information? Maybe it's here? Short history of Morrowind. Now we read this before. I want to know when the Empire come to the Morrowind. So the exact year is not said here. Almost 4 centuries after the coming of the Imperial Legions, Morrowind is still occupied by Imperial Legions. La la la. 5 great causes. And here is the year is set. Third era from 140. So you can imagine that at the start of third era maybe. Anyway, so what can I tell is more confidence that I was wrong at the start of the stream. So to be honest, the Morrowind wasn't conquered by Empire soon enough. It was conquered by Empire years before, centuries before, at least 4 centuries before it. Maybe more, maybe 5 centuries, so it's a long story before. Let's read. So okay, at the first volume maybe we can have the answers if I will not stuck on these benches. Tiberius Septim, who set the rule. What's about Morrowind? Where is the word about the Morrowind? La la, not a word about it. Let's look at the short history of Morrowind. Who conquered the Morrowind exactly? Come on, okay. There's answers in this book. I believe in it. Bodies of Cyrodiil. Imperial Legions. Who was the rulers of Imperial Legions? Ah, it was here, Tiberius Septim. So Vivids has some treaty with Emperor Tiberius Septim. So it was way back at the start, and I was mistaken. This grand conquest was at the start. Before the rule of Tiberius Septim, all Tamriel was in chaos, as you remember. So the Tiberius and the strong hand of Septim brought peace forcibly to Tamriel. So the emperor at the start of the third era, I mean at the end of the second era, almost the start of the third one, he set the peace to the whole lands of Tamriel, including the Morrowind. So this emperor, this legendary emperor Tiberius Septim, was the one who conquested the Tamriel with empire. So he make it a big country. Okay, so we finished here the story. I think it's more like shorter stories here. Let's read this one. Wait a second, I will take this book because it's mine. Let's continue this. Let's read the Galleron the Mystic by Asgrim Kolsgreg. It says a story too about history. During the early bloody years of the Second Era, Vanus Galleron was born under the name Trechtus, a serf on the estate of a minor nobleman. Lord Girnes of Solicic on Kyo, Trechus' father and mother were common laborers, but his father had secretly, against the law of Lord Gerans, taught himself and then Trechus to read. I'm about reading how much is in this book. Okay. Lord Girnes had been advised that illiterate serfs were an abomination of nature and dangerous to themselves and their lords, and had closed all bookstalls within Solage on Cur. All booksellers, poets, and teachers were forbidden, except within Girnes's keep. Nevertheless, a small-scale smuggling operation kept a number of books and scrolls in circulation right under Girnes's shadow. When Trechus was 8, the smugglers was found and imprisoned. Some say that Trechus' mother, an ignorant and religious woman fearful of her husband, was the betrayer of the smugglers, but there were other rumors as well. The trial of smugglers was non-existent, and the punishment swift. The body of Trechtus' father was kept hanging for weeks during the hottest summer Solage on Cure had seen in centuries. 3 months later, Trechtus ran away from Lord Girnes' estate. He made it as far as Alinor, halfway across Somerset Isle. A band of troubadours found him nearly dead, curled up in a ditch by the side of the road. They nursed him to health and employed him as an errand boy in return for food and shelter. One of the troubadours, a soothsayer named Heliant, began testing Trench's mind and found the boy, though shy, to be preternaturally intelligent and sophisticated given his circumstances. Heliant recognized in the boy a commonality, for Heliant had been trained on this Isle of Artacum, or Arteo, I know it's C or E, as a mystic. When the troupe was performing in the village of Patansa, on the far eastern end of Somerset, Hilliand took Trechtus, then a boy of 11, to the Isle of Artacum. The magister of the isle, Iachisis, recognized potential in Trechtus and took him on as pupil, giving him the name of Vanus Calarem. Vanus trained his mind on the Isle of Artacum, as well as his body. Thus, the first Archmagister of the mage skilled trained from the psychics of the Isle of Artacum. He received his training. From his childhood of want and injustice, he received his philosophy of sharing knowledge. That's the book. Wait a second, I need to check that everything is good.
What was that?
Okay, seems like everything is okay. And we have 3 books left. Let's do them one by one, shall we? On Artacum. The Isle of Artacum. Is it Artacum? Maybe there's another font here. Is it C or E? So this is C and this is E. Yeah, there's a difference. Very small difference. But what we can get is nice anyway. Wait a second. Are you saying that this is E? Yeah, it is E. Yeah, it's pretty obvious here. The C and E. So it's a C. I mean, this is E. Sorry, guys. Sorry for this mistake. On Arteo by Tors Il Anselma. The Isle of Arteum, or Arteum, it's called Arteum because it's funnier, is the third largest island in the Somerset archipelago, located south of the Moridonon village of Potenza and west of the mainland village of Ronkibaya. It is best known for being home to the Psychic Order, perhaps the oldest monastic group in Tamriel. The earliest written record of Psychics is from the 20th year of the First Era and tells the tale of the renowned Breton sage and after Vernet traveling to the Isle of Arteum, Arteum, I don't know, to meet with Aichesis, the right master of the Psychics. Even then, the Psychics were the counselors of kings and proponents of the Elder's Way, taught to them by the original race that inhabited Tamriel. The Elder Way is a philosophy of meditation and study said to bind the forces of nature to the individual will. It differs from Magica in origin, but the effects are much the same. That said, it is perhaps more than coincidence that the Isle of Arteium literally vanished from the shores of Somerset at the beginning of the Second Era, at about the time of the founding of the Mages Guild in Tamriel. Various historians and scholars have published theories about this, but perhaps none but Iachisis and his own could shed light on the matter. 500 years passed, and Artaeum returned. The subjects on the isle consisted of persons, mostly elves, who had disappeared and were presumed dead in the Second Era. They could not or would not offer any explanation for Artaeum whereabouts during that time, or the fate of Aegisthus and the original Council of Artaeum. Currently, the subjects are led by the Lord Master Celarus, who has presided over the Council of Artaeum for the last 250 years. The Council's influence in Tamriel politics is tidal. The kings of Somerset, particularly those of Moridunon, have often sought the subjects' opinion. Emperor Uriel V was much influenced by the council in the early, most glorious parts of his reign, before his disastrous attack on Akavir. It has even suggested that the fleet of King Orkhum of Piondonia was destroyed by a joint effort of Emperor Antiochus and the Psijic Order. The last four emperors, Uriel VI, Morihantha, Pelagius IV, and Uriel VII, have been suspicious of the Psijics enough to refuse ambassadors from the Isle of Artaeum within the Imperial City. The Isle of Artaeum is difficult to chart geographically. It is said that it shifts continuously, either at random or by decree of the consul. Visitors to the island are so rare as to be almost unheard of. Anyone desirous of a meeting with a Psijic may find contacts in Potenza and Aruncibia, as well as many other kingdoms of Somerset. Were it more accessible, Artaeum would be a favored destination for travelers. I have been to the isle once, and still dream of its idyllic orchards and clear pastures. Its still and silent lagoons, its misty woodlands, and the unique Psychic architecture that seems to be as natural as its surroundings, as well as wondrous in its own right. The Tseparach Tower in particular I would study, for it is a relic from a civilization that predates the High Elves by several hundred years, and is still used in certain rites by the Psychics. Perhaps one day I might return. Note: the author is currently on the Isle of Artaeum by gracious consent of Master Sargenus of the Council Artaeum. So, to be honest, we are 12 pages away from the end of the stream. Okay, let's do this. Where were you when the dragon broke? Corax, Cyrodiil, Elder Consul. No one understands what happened when the selectives danced on that tower. It would be easy to dismiss the whole matter as nonsense were it not for the Amulet of Kings. Even the Elder Scrolls do not mention it. Let me correct myself. The Elder Scrolls cannot mention it. When the moth priests attune the scrolls to the timeless time, their glyphs always disappear. The Amulet of Kings, however, with its oversoul of emperors, can speak of it at length. According to Hestra, Cyrodiil became an empire across the stars. According to Shor-El, Cyrodiil became an egg. Most say something in a language they can only speak sideways. The council has collected texts and accounts from all of its provinces, and they only offer stories that never coincide, save on one point. All the folk of Tamriel during the Middle Dawn, in whatever when they were caught in they, they were caught in, tracked the fall of the 8 stars. And that is how they counted their days. Okay. Mehranabisi Danmer, uh, Triune mistress of the new temple. Accounts of the Middle Dawn are the province of the Empire of Man, and proof of the deceit that call themselves the Aedra. 8 stars fell on Tamriel, one for each iniquity that Lorkhan made clear to the world. Wait a second. Check something. Yeah, everything fine. Let's move. So, one for each iniquity that Lord Khan made clear to the world. Velos read these signs, and he told Poethia, who confirmed them, and he told Mephala, who made wards against them, and he told Azura, who sent Almsivi to steer the true folk clear of harm. I'm trying to remember what Almsivi means. And this word means like glory or holy, maybe something like that. I think like that. For the Temple of Thunders. Yeah. To steer the true folk clear of harm. Even the 4 corners of the House of Troubles arose to protect the periphery of your madness. We watched our borders and saw them shift like snakes, and saw you run around in it, like the spirits of old devoid of math, without if-thens, succumbing to the ever now like slaves of the slim folly stasis. Do not ask do not ask us where we were then. Uh, come on. Do not ask us where we were when the dragon broke. For all the world, only we truly know, and we might just show you how to break it again. Erlyut Khajiit, tender to the main. Do you mean where were the Khajiit when the dragon broke? Elliot tells you where, recording it. 1008 years. You've heard it. You think the Thero Nordics came up with that all on their own? You humans are better thieves than even Raijin. While you were fighting wars with phantoms and giving birth to your own phases, it was the main that watched the Khajai. Because the moons were the only constant, and you didn't have the sugar to see it. We will give you credit. You broke Alkosh, something fierce, and that's not easy with Alkosh. Not him. Uh, Just don't think you solved what you accomplished by it, or can ever solve it. You did it again with Big Walker, not once but twice. Once at Trimmer, which we'll never learn to live with. The second time in the second time it was in Daggerfall, or was it in Sentinel, or was it in Wayrest, or was it in all three places at once? Get me, third deal. When will you wake up and realize what really happened to the dwarfs? Manimarco, god of worms, the necromancers. The three thieves of Morrowind could tell you where they were. So called the High King of Alinor, who was the one who broke it in the first place. There are others on this earth that could too. Yeah, Izmir, Pilinal, Arnold the Fox, or should I say Arctus, the last dwarf will talk, if they would let him. As for myself, I was here and there and here again, like the rest of the mortals during the Dragon Break. Uh, how do you think I learned my mystery? The Marukhati selectives showed us all the glories of the dawn so that we might learn simply, as above, so below. Okay, that's a strange story about some quotes of interesting people. And the last book for today, Imperial Charter of the Guild of Mages. No, Paragraph 1. Purpose. The Guild of Mages provides benefits to scholars of magic and established laws regarding the proper use of magic. The Guild is dedicated to the collection, preservation, and distribution of magical knowledge, with an emphasis on ensuring that all citizens of Tamriel benefit from this knowledge. Paragraph 2. Authority. The Guild of Mages was established on Somerset Isle in the year 230 of the Second Era by Vanus Galerion and Relis the Twelfth. It was later confirmed by the Guild's Act of Potentate Versidue Shaia. Paragraph 3. Rules and Procedures. Crimes against fellow members of the guild are treated with the harshest discipline. Whether a member may regain their status in the guild is determined by Archmage. Paragraph 4. Membership requirements. The Guild of Mages only accepts candidates of keen intelligence and dominant will. Candidates must exhibit mastery in the great schools of magic, destruction, alteration, illusion, and mysticism. Candidates must also display practical knowledge of enchantments and alchemical processes. Paragraph 5. Application for membership. Candidates must present themselves to the steward of the guild hall for examination and approval. Attachment A. Mages Guilds, chapters in Vandeville District, Province Morrowind. And there is names of them. So they are in Aldrichan, Balmora, and Saldera. The chapter in Sadris Mora is established in Wolverine Hall under the lease from the Telvanni Council. The chapter in Vivis established in the Foreign Quarter under the lease of the Tribunal Temple. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know how long I've read all the books for us today. And I will see you next time, where we will first of all look at the spells that they could give us, could teach us in this Mage Guild. Then we will do some Fighters Guild quests, maybe the Mage Guild too, along the way. That's it. that's our story. Thanks for watching, guys, and I see you next time on the Tamriel with this old woman. Goodbye.